All right, so we've been working on execution of the college lecture format, which is, I think, a fun thing to work on. In particular, your most recent action step was to incorporate the process check for understanding. In other words, the check for understanding that checks for the quality of student notes. So, 2 questions. What key moves have you done to execute that? And what has been the positive impact?
All right, so one of the key moves that I used in order to execute that was, one, actually having scholars show me where they were at. So like having the show call has been like a big game changer when it comes to where they're at and how they're processing. And 2, due to the college lecture format, today's FRQ actually had them going back where they were like, I remember the picture. So they were able to respond based on the fact that they remembered what the picture was.
Because they had better notes, too.
Because they had better notes.
Great. Ooh, my computer, my camera. That's awesome. And over time, you'll have to do less and less queuing for those notes, too, which will be another benefit. That's probably going to fall again, but whatever. All right, so today we're going to jump into the second check for understanding in the college lecture format.
Okay.
Which is, the content check for understanding. I think I figured out what's wrong. The content check for understanding. Okay. So what I did was I took that template and I made kind of like a 1-pager for the content check for understanding because I felt as though it was confusing, and I made this for you. In this first part of the content CFU, students are either working independently or in a group to process something in their notes. And in the second part, you are going over it as a whole class. So that's kind of the gist of it. The first part, they're processing something in their notes. Second part, you're debriefing together. And so I'm going to go through kind of part by part what kiddos are doing. So in the first part, if kiddos are working independently, what are the different tasks you could assign them?
Got it. You can have them, it says for the first one, like the first option was like if they're doing the independent notes, having them annotate and look for specific examples, and having them like box after their notes so that they're having like pretty much like what we've been working on, I guess, with the breadcrumbs. Especially when it comes to annotation of written work and just writing notes to self on how they're going to remember certain
So
key
they're
factors.
annotating for a certain thing. That's the first option. What's the next option if they're working independently?
If they're working independently, are these key points?
So these are the 3 things that, these are one, kind of like how you do the check for understanding for notes. These are 3 options that you could assign if you wanted students to work independently. So the first option you could have them do is to annotate their notes. What is the second one you could have them do?
Record key takeaways in a small box after their notes.
So you could, say, in a box after your notes, tell me what are the most important parts of your notes.
I need to know what that looks like. Like, what do you mean, like, in a box?
You could just tell students,
Like, if this was it, right? If this was their notes, are they doing a box outside the box?
Yep.
And writing within their box, as opposed to just writing on the side?
It doesn't have to be in a box at the bottom. It could be on the side or something like that. But in some dedicated space, you're going to say, what are the 2 big ideas for today? Write them down.
Okay.
Make sense to you? So the box is just like a formatting thing. Doesn't always have to be a box. Just some key place for kids to write the key ideas. That would be the second thing.
Okay.
And then the third thing would be to have the students generate questions based upon their notes. Like professor questions, we would call them. So all 3 of these independent things, what is like the purpose of them?
Well, the purpose, one, is for them to have a stronger focus on what the main idea of the question or the notes are being asked of them.
Great. So that's if you want to have the kids do something independently to process their notes. What are the options for if you want them to work in a small group?
So if you want them to work in a small group, ask each other clarifying questions and compare notes. When they're working in partner groups, so they're working in groups of 2 to 4 people, right, to complete a task, wouldn't it be easier to, I don't know, like have them both working on something different so then they can compare
I think that would
information?
What do you mean?
Like if it's the same part that they're rating on, but it's like, I guess like having high-low questions and just for them to like get the main idea based on those high-low questions.
Like have differentiated
Like
groups?
differentiated groups.
I think that would be phase 2 of this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
For now, I would, no, well, you don't even be sorry. I think that would be phase 2, but for now, I would stick to just like asking one big question for them to work on in groups, and so they get used to this type of check for understanding.
Okay.
Okay, so the things you're gonna do in groups are ask some kind of clarifying question, have them generate professor questions in a group, or work together to do some kind of higher order thinking task, like a scenario or something like that, using their notes. Okay, so again, the overall purpose of doing this is for kids to just do something with their notes. You just took them, now let's practice using them, either by writing a question, annotating for something, applying it to a task, because you are getting better now at getting kids to take good notes. Now we need to train our kids how to use the notes. Because when they go to college, they're going to take all those notes and they're going to be like, okay, what do I do with this? And this is one step in teaching them that. So what are you doing during the time kiddos are either working independently or in the group?
Circulating, just to give them feedback on what their work is actually, what they're actually doing. And besides the circulation, maybe writing down on a piece of paper, like responses that were actually high or low so that we can actually go and formulate that circle and bring everything back.
Nice, perfect. Okay, so that's how you do that first part. And it's just basically a task for kiddos to work with the notes, and you're going to circulate and see if there's any misconceptions or stuff you got to talk about as a class. Now, the second part is what I call the debrief. What are the students doing during the second part?
Are we on this part right here?
Yep,
Okay.
what happens on here? What are the students doing?
Students are listening actively and adding to their notes, or they're asking the professor notes. So then they'll be asking the questions based on what they've already taken down. That's what,
Yeah, so
okay.
for example, that one day I remember Nye asked a question, what if, and it was something crazy, like she wanted to get rid of half the world's population, but, something like that. And so what are you doing during that debrief?
So I want to make sure that I am clarifying the misunderstandings. Take the professor questions from students, calling on those with the most valuable question first, and dismissing questions that are off topic or not aligned to the lecture.
Great. And so I love how you raised your eyebrows when you said clarifying the misconceptions, because that's what our next coaching session is going to be on. I have a great video clip. I'm actually going to do a coaching session with Damien about it too, but it's a video clip about what to do when a kid just says a misconception or when half the class has a misconception. We'll do that next.
Okay.
But for this time, this is going to be your action step for college lectures moving forward. So I'm going to have you write it down.
Okay.
I'm not going to have you guess what it is. This is what it is. I'm going to have you write down, like usual, the what and the how for the action step, and then we're going to plan it.
Okay.
So the what is to plan and execute the content CFU. So this is one word different than that previous action step you had, which is the process CFU, which is the notes checking. So the how is the first point you want to do is ensure you have key points in the lesson plan. The second is choose an independent or small group task for students to process their notes. And then the third, there's going to be four. The third is decide what data to collect when you circulate. And then the last is script how you'll respond to the data. Awesome.
Okay.
So now what we're going to do is practice. We're going to go into your lessons for next week for AP Human Geography, and we're going to do the action step. We're going to plan the content CFU. So if we want to start with, I think I saw that Monday you have a college lecture coming up. Let me pull it up. So Monday the 12th, first day of the quarter. Your key points. Production creates an object that is more valuable than the sum of the raw materials going into it. Industrialization is a process by which a greater proportion of national economy is involved with manufacturing, and that allowed more goods to be produced in greater quantity and at a lower price. Is that supposed to be, and that allows?
Yeah.
Okay. Mass production of goods helped spark more goods and quantities rose and prices dropped. Mass production of goods.
Help spark more goods as quantities rise and prices drop. Sorry. Typo.
Yes. Okay. Go through and revise that real quick just so it's clear whenever you print it. You got that?
Mm-hmm.
Now on Monday, I know you how to do this. You need to consistently put in your plan. Put in your CFU right now for monitoring note quality, that first one.
Okay.
Go ahead and put it in right now.
Is that where I put for the criteria for success? Like
No.
that's where where would I put that in?
Criteria for success would be like that, what you put on the exit ticket. So for example,
I thought that was the exit and the exemplar. Like that's why I was just like I keep getting confused
good question.
by the criteria for success and what the exit and
Criteria for
exemplar.
success is like the checklist that you've been putting on things.
Okay.
I always think of criteria for success is almost always a checklist for kids. Like make sure you box the key verbs, do this, do that. An exit ticket and exemplar is just the exit ticket you're gonna give kids and what the right answer is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. But if you go scroll down, the first process CFU, which was your last action tip, is monitor note quality. So put in there what option of those A, B, and C are you going to do?
Okay. So that's okay.
Because that was your old action step and you've shown you can do it. Now let's make sure it's always in the plan.
So that one just has to okay.
Yeah, do the note check.
Just the note check. Okay, got it.
Whichever method you're going to use.
You know what I'm having a problem with though? Like thinking of what the misconception would be. Like when I was I was doing the first part of it.
With this, sometimes students think if there's more goods, it's going to cost more. Just because there's more stuff. They don't understand that, like, when you mass produce things, sometimes you can do a little bit cheaper. Or when there's a bigger quantity, it's not in high demand. Not as high in demand. But when we have a small quantity, it's in higher demand. Like, for, like, this is a bad example because they weren't alive probably yet. But remember when Tickle Me Elmos, there was so few of them, and then there was a huge demand, and so price skyrocketed. Something like that. You could say like new tennis shoes, they call it sneakers is what we call them. But new sneakers come out, and there's only so few of them. So because there's less goods, the cost is higher. So I think using the opposite in that case helps kids understand.
Okay.
Okay. Did you get the notes, check for understanding in there? In your plan?
Yeah.
Can you press save and then I'll be able to see it if you press save on yours?
Oh, okay.
Perfect.
Do you see it now?
Yep, perfect. Okay, now let's go down. Let's do this first one together. Your small group CFU. So this is the day where the key ideas are that kids need to know that the more goods, the cheaper they are, and that mass production kind of helps prices drop. Those are the key ideas. And so what do we want to choose for the task for students to do? Do you think it's better for them to do it independently or in a small group, since this is the first day you're doing it?
Since this is the first day, I think it's better when they annotate for self so that they can actually like
Okay.
process.
Okay, so we're going to do independent, and what are you going to have kids annotate for?
I think I can give them some questions based on
What about,
what
we should
the-
pick one focus question.
one focus question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So this lesson's all about like production and goods and stuff like that. And so you could say annotate for,
I know inside the actual textbook there's a graph that they're talking about with that talks about mass production that can actually be used in order for them to like look at the visual and answer the question based on that.
okay, or so you could say annotate your notes and underline evidence that shows. And what do you want them to show?
I want them to show how through the use of what they're seeing that the production of it is more valuable. Like it's
Right.
just like it becomes
Because we
something
want
that
to target this misconception. I'm reading this again right here on the screen. Mass production means higher prices for goods that are in circulation. That's the misconception we think they're going to have. So annotate your notes for evidence that shows mass production is decreases prices.
Okay.
Annotate your notes for evidence that, or you could say, maybe it's annotate your notes for evidence that mass production is good for you, the consumer. That way you're not like giving away that you want them to talk about cost.
Yeah. I just went and wrote it the way that I said it, and I just realized that consumer.
Kid Bronx. So what did you capture on your plan?
Did it save? Do you see it?
I just have to pull up, but it will. Yep. Annotate notes for evidence that shows that mass production is good for you, the consumer. Perfect. Now, for monitor note quality, what are you going to walk around and look for? What data you're going to collect?
I am going to look for.
What should students be underlining?
Well, what I'm going to be looking for high and low responses.
What would be a high response for this and what would be a low response?
Like the high response would be actually saying that mass production of goods help.
Right. So I would put high, looking for this, and then leave a blank for you to write in a kiddo's name or something like that, how you used to do.
All right.
So you're going to go around and you're going to look for a high and a low example.
Yeah.
Because you're really good at doing that closing the loop thing. Excellent. Great. Now how are you going to bring this all back together, whole group?
Okay.
And that's where you're going to put here where it says large group CFU. The small group is when you have kiddos working on their own or independently. Large group is when all right, let's bring it back. Let's see if we got this.
Okay. So then the large group CFU would be, is that this part right here?
Mm-hmm. And so this first one is very similar to something that you already know how to do, which is the medium, high, low situation. The medium kid who might have a misconception and say, not all the way there. High kid, can you fix? Low kid, stamp that. This is something that you already do really well.
So is that like, so doing the large group CFU would be bringing them back and re-asking the question and having them respond to it?
Perfect. So you can, re-ask your question, have them respond to it. Make a note about that. You're going to do your medium, high, low, which is something you're strong with. All set?
Yeah. So all I have to do is add in the PowerPoints.
Okay. Let me see. Re-ask question and pick high medium. Perfect. Great. I want to do one more round of practice since we've only been here for 20 minutes and have you do the same thing for Tuesday. So I read through your key points already. They look good. What I want you to do is put in your notes CFU and put in your small group and large group debrief CFU.
Yeah.
So take 5 minutes to do that, and then I'm gonna have you save it so I can see it.
Okay.
I'm gonna see if you can do it on your own.
Right, because my thing is that, like, because Tuesday's lesson, I know, like, the major part is, like, bringing home that Monday's lesson, but the Tuesday's lesson is the one that, especially for part 3, the maquiladora zone, is one of the questions that they've asked, like, 4 times within their FRQs.
Okay.
So, like, I know I have to make sure that I stamp this lesson more than anything else.
So maybe it's professor questions about the maquiladora zone.
Okay. I'm like, yeah, because that part 3, like, the third part is like...
That'd be a great time for kids to ask any questions they have to make sure you address them before they leave. So I would choose small group and generate professor questions.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So take 5 minutes, script out your notes CFU, your content CFU, and then you can share it, or save it, and then I'll look at it.
Okay. hit save.
Okay.
All right.
And this is Tuesday. Let's take a look. Notes check, show call. Work together a dip. Answer a higher order thinking question based on immaculate or zone. I thought you were going to have them generate questions.
Should I have them generate questions, or should I just give them questions?
If you are going to give a higher order thinking question, then it should say exactly in your plan what the question is. What is the question?
Right.
You can do either one, but if you're going to have a question, you got to name it now.
Because I wanted to go and give them part of one of the AP questions, just like one of the portions.
Okay,
The
what part?
I'll tell you right now. Or is that me putting too much into one class
No,
period?
you would say find evidence to answer this question,
Okay.
and then ask the question, and then have them, So it depends on what the question is.
Okay. Find the question.
That's okay, take your time.
Yeah, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Discuss 4 factors.
What is the question? To discuss 4 factors that what?
Discuss 4 factors that explain why Mexico has emerged as an important location in the current global system of industrial organization.
Okay, so what you should have them do is annotate for evidence that shows that Mexico has emerged as, and then,
Okay.
yeah, so let's put that in there for, you can either ask it as a question, or you can have kids annotate it.
Annotate it.
It's either one. In that case.
Okay. Because then that goes and hits up every 4 portions that we've discussed.
Right, so work together to answer a higher order question. So you're gonna, what is the question you're asking students?
Asking them to,
Name and discuss 2 factors why.
yeah.
And then the rest of that part, so go ahead and type that in.
Name and discuss Merged.
All right, save it and I'll take a look.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Great. Okay, so I just want to name it. This is probably the feedback I'm going to give you for the other days, is to put in your notes CFU and your content CFU.
That's fine.
I'm going to come in and film you. Which would you prefer, Monday or Tuesday?
I really want the feedback for the Tuesday, because it's like, that's one of the
Okay.
questions that keeps, I want to make sure that I hit all the points for that topic.
So I'm going to come around 8:10 and I'll be there to the end of class.
Okay,
And I'll come first period so I can give you quick things to talk about for a second.
all right.